When a man disappears, the first 2 days are the most deceptive because they create an illusion in her mind that everything is under control. She tells herself she's fine. She acts like nothing has shifted. She convinces her friends that she's unbothered, relaxed, even relieved. But inside, something entirely different begins to unfold. Her ego may be celebrating, but her soul is already feeling the first silent tremor. She doesn't show it because she doesn't want to admit that your absence has weight. She doesn't want to accept that someone she thought she had figured out suddenly became unpredictable. For so long, she assumed you would always be there, always available, always one message away. So when you disappear, her mind doesn't know how to process the change. And while she tries to appear calm and unaffected, she can't ignore the fact that something feels off, something feels missing. In those early hours, she keeps expecting your name to pop up on her phone out of habit. She checks her notifications without meaning to. She opens her messages pretending she's looking for something else, but subconsciously she's searching for you. She'll tell herself she's only checking out of routine, that she doesn't care, that she has moved on mentally. But the truth is, silence exposes the truth. She used to hide behind her ego. Your disappearance removes the emotional cushion she once relied on. That cushion wasn't love or dependence, it was the comfort of knowing she mattered to you. Whether she admitted it or not, that mattered more than she let on. By day two, she starts to sense the shift more clearly. She expected that you would reach out. She expected a follow up, a question, an explanation, something that proved you were still holding on. Instead, your silence grows louder, and that silence creates pressure, not the kind that breaks her, but the kind that forces her to confront her own behavior. She begins to replay conversations, interactions, and small moments she once brushed off. She wonders if she pushed too hard, if she assumed too much, if she let pride lead her decisions. At this stage, she still refuses to accept responsibility. She tells herself you're just trying to make her chase. She tells herself you're playing games. But deep down, she knows there is something different this time. Your disappearance doesn't feel like a game, it feels like a shift in your energy, a change in your direction, a withdrawal of your attention that she didn't prepare for. Her ego is still fighting. It tells her he'll be back. He always comes back. But her soul feels a quiet discomfort that only grows with every hour you stay gone. She doesn't realize it yet, but this discomfort is the beginning of something much bigger. It's the emotional spark that begins the unraveling of her confidence, the questioning of her assumptions, the awakening of her fear. Because when someone who genuinely cared suddenly goes quiet, it forces her to acknowledge something she tried to ignore your presence mattered. And losing something that matters, even if she didn't value it when she had it, always creates a void. That void is small at first. She fills it with distractions, conversations, social media, or temporary validation. But nothing feels the same. Nothing hits like the attention you used to give. Nothing replaces the energy you carried. She won't admit this to anyone, not even to herself yet, but the truth is already forming in her mind. Your silence is not just silence, it is a shift, it is a message. It is the first sign that she may have underestimated you. By the time a few more days pass, her mind begins shifting from simple curiosity to something far more uncomfortable doubt. Doubt is subtle at first. It starts as a small whisper in the back of her mind, a question she pushes away as quickly as it appears. Why hasn't he reached out yet? She tries to convince herself that she doesn't care, that she's busy, that she has options, that her life is full. But the silence is now long enough that her ego can't fully protect her anymore. The longer you stay gone, the more she feels a pressure she didn't expect because now your disappearance doesn't look like a reaction. It looks like a decision. This is the stage when she starts comparing her past assumptions with her present reality. She remembers how available you were, how consistent you were, how much effort you put in, even when she wasn't matching it. She remembers the messages you sent that she ignored, the calls she let ring, the chances you offered that she didn't take seriously. She may not have appreciated those moments then, but now the contrast is obvious. You didn't just pull back slightly, you vanished. You didn't just reduce effort, you removed it completely. That shift forces her to confront something emotionally uncomfortable. She may not have the power she thought she had over you. Her ego starts losing its grip. For the first time, she wonders if she pushed too far, if she misread your patience as weakness, if she confused your consistency with neediness. She may even feel a sting of regret, but she won't call it that yet. She'll simply say she misses the attention, but deep down, she knows the truth is heavier. She doesn't miss just the attention, she misses the security that came with it, the certainty, the validation, the comfort of knowing you cared. And the longer your silence remains unbroken, the more she realizes how much she relied on that comfort without ever acknowledging it. This is also the stage when she starts observing you from a distance, even if she pretends she's not. She checks your social media quietly without liking anything. She looks at your status updates. She watches your stories from a fake account or a secondary profile. She pays attention to your activity because she wants to understand what changed. She wants to know if you've moved on, if you're happier, if someone else has your attention. She'll never admit this, not to her friends, not to herself, but the curiosity is real and it's growing. As doubt deepens, so does the internal conflict. Her heart is quietly uneasy, but her ego still wants to protect her pride. This creates emotional tension. One part of her wants to believe you're still attached. Another part fears you've detached completely, and that fear is what hurts her the most. Because if you have truly moved on, it means she wasn't as important as she thought. It means her assumptions were wrong. It means she misjudged your intention, your strength, and your emotional independence. This is the psychological turning point where your silence stops being something she can ignore. It becomes something she must interpret. She starts reanalyzing the relationship from the beginning, questioning her behavior, questioning your reactions, questioning what she might have done differently. She may even start feeling guilt, real heavy guilt, because now the cost of pride feels much higher than she expected. By this stage, she is no longer annoyed that you disappeared. She is unsettled by it. She is thinking about you more than she ever expected to. And she is beginning to sense the possibility that she might be losing someone she should have valued. As more time passes, something deeper begins to shift inside her, far beyond curiosity and doubt. Now she enters the phase where your absence starts to feel personal. It becomes emotional. It becomes unsettling. This is when she starts replaying every moment, every conversation, every decision she made with you. Not because she wants to, but because her mind refuses to let the memories stay quiet anymore. It's like your silence opens a door she thought she had closed, and suddenly everything she ignored, avoided, or brushed off comes rushing back with full force. She begins questioning herself in ways she never did before. Was I too harsh? Did I take him for granted? Did I misread his intentions? These thoughts invade her peace at random times. When she's at work, scrolling on her phone, hanging out with friends, or lying awake at night, she didn't expect to be thinking about you at all. Yet now she's thinking about you constantly. This is the irony of your disappearance. It creates the very emotional attachment she once claimed she didn't feel. Your silence becomes a mirror, forcing her to confront her own patterns. She remembers moments where you showed care, consistency, and presence. She also remembers how she responded, pulled back, acted indifferent, or assumed you'd always be there no matter what. And that realization stings because now she's seeing the truth she didn't want to admit. She had security without earning it. She had effort without reciprocating. She had someone who showed up even when she didn't. And now that F word is gone, now that presence is missing, now that security is silent, this is the stage where regret begins to form. Not the loud, dramatic kind, but the slow, burning internal regret that grows day by day. She starts recalling the times when you tried to communicate and she didn't respond, the times you tried to fix things and she dismissed it, the times when you showed vulnerability and she didn't acknowledge it. And the more she remembers, the heavier it becomes because in her mind, she's starting to see a pattern she never wanted to face. You cared more than she realized, and she failed to meet you halfway. This emotional shift also comes with fear, specifically the fear of what your silence actually means. She now understands that disappearing requires strength, especially from someone who once cared. She knows it's not easy to walk away from emotion. So if you did walk away, it must mean something. It must mean you reached your breaking point. It must mean you're done waiting. It must mean you're healing, growing, leveling up, and possibly outgrowing her. That thought alone is enough to shake any woman who once felt confident in your attachment. Her pride starts weakening and her vulnerability begins rising. She becomes more sensitive to anything that reminds her of you, a place you used to go, a song you shared, a picture that pops up, a memory triggered unexpectedly. These moments hit differently now, not because she misses the past, but because she realizes she may have lost the future. She might even test the waters subtly, liking an old photo, viewing your story faster, posting something she hopes you'll react to. These are small signs of emotional unraveling. Breadcrumbs she drops not to reach out directly, but to see if you'll break first. She doesn't want to be the one to look weak, yet her actions reveal exactly how she feels: confused, unsettled, and emotionally stirred by your silence. Your disappearance has now shifted from being unexpected to being deeply impactful. She starts asking herself questions she never expected. What if he was the one who actually cared? What if I misjudged everything? What if he's already moved on? And as those thoughts grow louder, the emotional cracks widen because the truth is simple. Distance makes the heart think, but silence makes the heart confess. Your disappearance didn't just remove you from her life, it forced her to feel the weight of losing you. As more days pass, something inside her begins shifting from emotional discomfort to genuine fear of loss. This is where your disappearance stops being a temporary inconvenience or a bruise to her ego and becomes something much deeper, an existential threat to her sense of power, control, and influence. At this stage, she no longer wonders why you disappeared. She starts worrying about what your silence might mean about her. This is when the insecurity she kept buried for so long begins rising to the surface, refusing to be ignored anymore. She starts thinking less about what you did wrong and more about what she may have done wrong. That's a powerful shift. Before, she assumed you would always return, always chase, always show up no matter how she behaved. But now your silence has lasted long enough that this belief begins to crumble. And when a woman loses the certainty that you're attached, she starts questioning everything. In her mind, she replays conversations that seemed insignificant at the time, moments where you hinted at feeling unappreciated, times when you expressed emotional exhaustion, or when you quietly pulled back and she didn't take the hint seriously. Now, with your absence amplifying the silence, she sees those moments differently. What she interpreted as minor frustrations now look like warnings she ignored. She starts thinking maybe he really was getting tired. Maybe he really was done trying. And that thought scares her because it means she may have misjudged the situation completely. Your silence forces her to view you in a new light as someone who has boundaries, self respect, and the strength to walk away, even from someone he once deeply cared about. And nothing shakes a woman more than realizing a man she thought she could control is actually strong enough to detach. That's when the fear sets in, not fear of being alone, but fear of losing someone who was genuinely good to her. This fear grows in the quiet moments when she sees couples walking together and thinks of the comfort you used to give, when she scrolls through old photos and suddenly feels a sting of nostalgia, when she opens her messages and sees the gap between your last conversation and now, when she checks your profile and sees that you're active, living, moving forward, but not thinking about her. It's in these small moments that she realizes just how much your presence once meant. And that realization hurts more than you can imagine. She also starts fearing that someone else may now be experiencing the version of you she took for granted. The attentive, loyal, steady, emotionally available man she didn't value when she had the chance. She imagines you with another woman, treating her with the same care you once gave, and that thought hits her like a punch. She doesn't want to admit it, but jealousy creeps in. It's not even about wanting you, it's about not wanting someone else to benefit from what she lost. And because her ego doesn't want to accept responsibility, she tries to rationalize her fear. She tells herself you're probably busy. She tells herself you'll come back eventually. She tells herself you're just giving space. But deep down, beneath all the excuses, she knows the truth: your silence is intentional. And your consistency in that silence proves it. This is where the emotional spiral begins. Her mind shifts from disappeared to I made him disappear. She starts feeling the weight of her actions. The games she played now feel childish. The distance she created now feels like sabotage. The indifference she showed now feels like regret. And that regret becomes a constant whisper in her mind, reminding her that she might have lost a man who actually cared. At this stage, the fear of losing you becomes stronger than her pride. She starts wanting your attention again, not because she needs validation, but because she's terrified she's no longer in your world. That fear is powerful. It's a turning point where her overthinking transforms into genuine emotional discomfort. And once that fear takes hold, Everything she once ignored now matters. As more time passes and your silence becomes part of her daily reality rather than a temporary pause, she enters the stage where overthinking turns into obsession. At this point, she's no longer casually wondering where you are or why you disappeared. She is replaying every single detail of the connection in her mind, scanning it like a detective looking for clues she missed. What started as curiosity turned into doubt, then fear, and now it evolves into a constant mental loop she can't escape. This is when your absence becomes louder than your presence ever was. She begins questioning not just the relationship, but her own behavior, decisions, and emotional patterns. She starts analyzing moments she once brushed off, times she ignored your messages because she wasn't in the mood, times she chose ego over effort, times she took your consistency as something guaranteed. Now she sees those moments through a different lens. Now they look careless. Now they look ungrateful. Now they look like mistakes. And the weight of those mistakes keeps pulling her back into the same thoughts over and over again. Your silence now has emotional consequences for her. She feels it in the things she does throughout the day. When she wakes up and instinctively checks her phone, only to see no message from you. When she scrolls through social media and wonders if that quote you posted was about her. When she sees a photo of a place you used to visit together and the memory hits harder than she expected. Every reminder becomes a trigger, and every trigger becomes another cycle of reflection she can't control. This is the point where she starts rewriting the story in her head. She remembers the moments where you showed vulnerability, support, loyalty, and realizes she didn't match the energy. She remembers the conversations where you tried to fix things and she dismissed your concerns. She remembers how you cared even when she was distant. And that contrast between who you were and how she behaved becomes painful. It's not just guilt, it's the realization that she may have let go of someone rare. She also starts imagining alternate scenarios. What if I responded differently that day? What if I didn't pull away? What if I actually appreciated him? These questions don't bring answers, they bring emotional tension. They make her feel like she's reliving the past, trying to rewrite something she can't change, and the more she thinks about it, the more she realizes she wasn't as emotionally detached as she pretended to be. She cared more than she admitted. Now, your silence exposes just how much she denied that. This level of overthinking also makes her hyper aware of your absence. She notices things she never noticed before, how quiet the mornings feel without your good morning messages, how empty her notifications feel without your name appearing, how different her evenings feel without your presence. There's a space in her mind that you once filled effortlessly, and now that space feels louder and heavier than she expected. She even starts comparing you to other men in her life or potential options she once thought she had. But now, those comparisons feel different. They highlight what she lost, not what she could gain. Because deep down, she knows that the connection she shared with you, despite the flaws, had something genuine in it, something she didn't nurture, something she took for granted, something she now wishes she had handled better. Your silence becomes a constant reminder of the version of herself she didn't want to face, the version that pushed away something real. And because she can't reach you emotionally, she retreats into her thoughts. This becomes her coping mechanism, her way of dealing with the emptiness your absence created. And though she won't admit it to anyone, this overthinking brings her to the uncomfortable realization that losing you wasn't just a breakup of communication, it was a break in her own emotional identity. You weren't just someone she dated, you were someone who revealed the parts of her she didn't confront. And now, through your silence, you're showing her who she truly was in the relationship. As even more time passes, long enough that silence becomes the new normal, she enters the final and most intense stage, the point where everything inside her reaches a tipping point. At this stage, the thoughts, fears, doubts, regrets, and memories she's been pushing around in her mind finally collide with one undeniable truth. She feels the full impact of your disappearance, not just mentally, not just emotionally, but deeply internally in a way she can no longer ignore or distract herself from. This is where your silence stops being something that happened to her and becomes something she feels responsible for. This stage is powerful because it forces her into a level of emotional honesty she avoided for a long time. She begins acknowledging things she never admitted before, not to you, not to her friends, not even to herself. She realizes she didn't appreciate you when she had you. She realizes she misread your intentions. She realizes she confused love with convenience, consistency with neediness, effort with weakness. And now, standing in the emptiness your absence created, she sees everything with painful clarity. She starts confronting the truth about her own behavior. She recognizes how she allowed her ego to control her decisions. She recalls moments where she rejected your attempts to connect simply because she assumed you would always keep trying. She sees how she held back affection, thinking it made her look strong, when in reality it only created distance. And she understands something she never expected. She wasn't protecting her heart, she was sabotaging her own happiness. This is the point where she begins feeling the emotional consequences of her choices. It's not about missing your attention anymore. It's about missing you, the version of you she didn't value until it was too late. Your patience, your consistency, your genuine care, your presence that once felt ordinary but now feels irreplaceable. And the more she thinks about it, the more she realizes how rare those qualities were, how rare you were. Her pride, the same pride that kept her distant, now feels heavy. It stops being her shield and becomes her burden. She wants to say something, reach out, break the silence, but she doesn't know how. She doesn't know if you'll respond. She doesn't know if you've moved on. She doesn't know if she still has a place in your life. And that fear is paralyzing because it forces her to confront the possibility that she may have lost you forever. In this stage, she becomes hyper aware of your growth. She sees you becoming better, stronger, more focused, more confident. She sees the changes you're making, the peace you're living, the detachment you've embraced. And she realizes she's no longer part of that world. She's no longer someone you're trying to impress, comfort, or pursue, not be feel out of reach, not because you're ignoring her, but because you're evolving past the version of yourself that needed her approval. And that is what hurts the most. This emotional realization becomes a turning point for her. She starts revaluing her patterns, not because she wants you to return, but because she sees how those patterns cost her something meaningful. She begins asking herself deeper questions about how she loves, how she communicates, how she values people. Your silence teaches her something she never learned from relationships that ended in drama, arguments, or closure. The quiet truth of accountability. She might even reach a place where she wants to reconnect, not for validation, not to regain control, but because she genuinely regrets how she handled things. But by the time she reaches this level of self awareness, she also knows something else. You may not be the same person anymore. You may not want what she wants. You may not feel what she feels. And that realization breaks her in a quiet, private way because now she understands that your disappearance wasn't just distance, it was growth, it was transformation, it was you choosing yourself